Recently, I just moved into my new home, and I'm finally in the exciting decorating stages. So I get to, put up different picture frames, leave out my little knickknacks. So it's been fun finally overlugging all the heavy furniture. And as I'm unpacking, I get a knock at the door, and I can see through the window it's the UPS man. And who doesn't love the UPS man? Because by this point, it's kind of like the adult Santa Claus. So I start getting really excited. What could he have to bring me? So I run downstairs, I open the door, and he looks at me, and he says, "How's your day?" Nope, doesn't say that. "Beautiful weather we're having. What plans do you have?" Nope, he doesn't say that either. He looks at me, and he says, and anyone here in customer service, don't take notes from this guy, because he looks at me, and he says, "You're not 21. I'm like, "Well, I have my new house, so I'm all the way up here, and wham, Santa Claus just knocked me down." And he says, "You're not 21. Where's your mother?" I'm like, "Well, sir, she's in New Jersey, so that's not really going to help us out in this situation." And he says, "You're not 21. No adult here, no package," and starts walking away. And I could hardly believe it. Next thing I know, I'm running down my driveway without any shoes on, saying, "Sir, I see my name is on that package. What can we do here?" And he looks at me real smug. He's got me here. And he says, "I'm going to need to see some ID. I'm like, "Oh, great." So I run back inside, I get my ID, and I bring it down to him. And he starts looking at it real thoroughly. And at this point, I know he must be a Denver nightclub bouncer because he has experience. So he's looking at my ID, asking me my date of birth, asking me my address, even go as far as to ask me my zodiac sign, so I knew he was a professional. Finally, there's this defeat in his voice. And he looks at me, and he says, "Sign here." Yes, 1 Melissa, 0 UPS man. So I'm thinking back on this memory, and it sounds like a victory as I tell it, and it definitely is slightly in my mind, but I've started to internalize it for a different reason. This particular UPS man was so sure that I couldn't have been 21. He had this idea in his head of what a 21-year-old looked like, what an adult looked like, and I didn't fit that mold. And how many of us have done that? Created these perceptions, assumptions about ourselves and about other people that have led us to the wrong conclusion. Well, my name is Melissa C. I'm with Comcast, and I'm here to talk to you about how our perception isn't always our reality. We need to get rid of this noise, this clutter, these assumptions that we're making that are leading us astray. So what's everyone here thinking? Don't tell me nothing, because recent studies have shown that the average person has about 50,000 thoughts a day. And now I know what you're all telling yourself, "Melissa, I have way more thoughts than that." But just bear with me for this. So if the average person has about 50,000 thoughts a day, with each thought, there's this chemical reaction in our body that's telling us how to react and behave in different situations. So what's the problem with that? Why am I talking about it? Well, because we're having so many thoughts, we can't possibly focus on what we're thinking on all the time. And a lot of these thoughts are passing through our brain, and we're still behaving and reacting to them without even noticing. So what are these thoughts? Well, they can be broken down into 3 parts. You have your past thoughts, your present thoughts, and your future thoughts. So what's a past thought? Well, it's what's happened already, what we know to have happened. Future thoughts, what we believe will happen. And then our present thought, which I think is most interesting, our own understanding of the world around us, our perception, and really our understanding of our own abilities. So this UPS man, that's something that's happened in my past thought. I had this understanding that at this point in time, this UPS man looked at me and said, "You're not 21." So what do my future then thoughts become? What will happen? The idea that, will every UPS man I meet think I'm not 21? Should I bring my ID every time I answer the door? But then, again, back to the most important, our present thought. What's my own understanding of myself? Are these strangers that I'm meeting viewing me as young? And this is a personal example, but it's something that I found to be very true in my professional life as well. When I first started with Comcast, fresh out of New Jersey, new to Colorado, wanted to see some fun things to do in the area. And I asked my fellow colleague, what are some things that I should try out? And she says, well, Colorado is known for all of their microbrew. Can you even drink? So here I am, meeting this colleague for the first time, viewing me the same way that that UPS man did. So if that's something that happened to me in the past, I think about my future. Will every colleague that I meet, every VP, executive, director, manager, see me as being young, as inexperienced, not having value? And with those thoughts of the future, I start to question my own present abilities. Do I not deserve that because I'm viewed as younger? Do I not have the same experience, the same knowledge, the same value to add as someone older? And then we start to not go for these opportunities. We start to question our own abilities. And this is just my personal example, but we all have these perceptions that we start to believe and we start to project onto other people. So, for example, I'm here today and I see all of your faces looking back at me saying, "Are you lost, little girl?" So it's something we've all internalized and we begin to project onto other people. So now that I've got you maybe thinking about your own perceptions and understanding we all might be a little crazy, where do these perceptions come from? Well, answer to everything, right? They come from society. Society makes us crazy. So when I think about these different perceptions that I've been taught, the one conflicting perception that I find of what really drives down my perception of youth is the perception of power. So what is the idea of power in society? Well, you think of a man in a suit driving a Range Rover, maybe having the corner office. That's the idea of power. Maybe a superhero. Of course, they're in a leotard and cape half the time, but the other half, they're wearing a suit. So if that's my understanding of power, how do I fit in? When I first started at Comcast, I met my supervisor, who was about 6'3". And I thought, wow, that's the tallest man I've ever seen. They don't grow them like that on the East Coast. And then I met my director shortly after that. He was about 6'7". Like, oh my gosh, wow, Colorado. And I start to see these men in power, and I start to think, well, I'm lucky to be 5'4" in heels, so I don't really know how I stack up to that. So if that's my idea of power, that's holding me back because I have this perception of youth, and I can't fit into that mold of what power should be. Again, now hopefully I've started to make you all realize how crazy we are in our heads. How do we overcome this? This is no way to live. We don't want to be holding ourselves back. We want to shoot for the stars. So what do? Well, there are 3 steps. Number 1, you want to be self-aware. My boss told me that the most powerful leaders are the ones that are self-aware. So They understand their own perceptions that they make of themselves and they make onto others, but they don't let it hold them back. They don't have this voice in their head saying, you don't deserve it. That's not who you are. They don't believe what they think. So number one, you want to be aware of these you want to be aware of these perceptions, which is something I hope you've all started to do, hearing a little bit about my own. And now that you've understood that, how do we overcome? Well, you overcome with confidence. You might be looking at me saying, are you lost, little girl? But I'm saying, no, I'm not lost. I'm here. I have something to say, and I have value to add. I have experiences that you'll want to know about. You have to be confident to overcome that perception. So whatever you might be saying in your heads, or more importantly, whatever I think, I know what you're thinking, I have the confidence to say, no, that's not how it's going to be. You have to overcome that perception. And of course, it's great that we can do this internally, and we can be our own advocate. The strongest tool that you can have to overcome these perceptions is your network. You need to build your network. You need to have advocates out there that are getting rid of the perceptions that you might not even be aware of. So yeah, maybe a few of you, as much as to my dismay, came in here and said, she should not be here. Maybe you've spoken to some of my WICT network, and they've said, no, I've heard Melissa practice. She has something to say. She has value to add. By that way, they're getting rid of that perception that might be out there. Roseanne Barr once said, the thing that women have yet to learn is that power is not given. You have to take it. So when we think about these perceptions that are holding us back, and the reasons we can't move forward, why? Why are we not taking our power? We need to get rid of these perceptions because our perception isn't always the reality of the situation. We need to overcome. My name is Melissa. This is my power, and I'm going to take it. Thank you.